Hey guys, and welcome back to another book video. This is a new series. I want to start doing this every quarter, so about 4 times a year, where I go through all of the books that I've read over the past 3 months. So today's video, I'm going to be talking about the books I read in January, February, and March. Let me know if you guys like this series. It kind of is a good way for me to wrap up my final thoughts on all the books that I read. I do talk about them in my monthly favorites as well. I figured it'd be easiest to do like a dedicated book video for people that just want to watch my book videos on my channel. So I hope you guys enjoy this video. Let me know what you've read over the past couple months or what you're planning on reading. Thank you guys as always for watching, and let's just go ahead and get started. This is a very complicated setup for me because I have the books on my lap, like right here, and then I also have this coffee, and then I also have my phone. That being said, if I spill the coffee over all of these books, I'm going to be so disappointed in myself and I'm gonna have so many regrets. But let's just jump into these books. The first book that I finished is actually a young adult, or more a teen. I guess it's a teen book. I just haven't read a Meg Cabot book in a long time, and this one is All American Girl. It's just kind of fun once in a while to like take a break from the heavier, denser books and read something that's super easy and lighthearted and just kind of fun and nostalgic. I just kind of like that once in a while, so I think I'm going to try and do that more often, at least like once every quarter, just read a book that is not like a classic or not something that is super dark or heavy, just to kind of like cleanse my palate a little bit. All American Girl is, like I said, by Meg Cabot, and it's about this girl who is kind of like a rebellious teenager. She ends up saving the president's life, and that leads to her forming a relationship with the president's son. It actually doesn't have the best plot. I realized that. I thought it was good when I was younger and I read this one, but now that I'm like old and I reread it, I'm like, this plot is really like not good. Another book that I read was Robin by Dave Itzkoff, and it's a biography on Robin Williams. It's actually really good. It did take me a long time to read, and I think it's just because I'm not a big biography or autobiography reader. I just don't really like nonfiction books that much, I've discovered. I think some of them are good, but they kind of have to be short, or I just have to be really super interested in the individual or the topic. I do really like Robin Williams, and I'm really glad I read this book. Learned stuff about him that you wouldn't know about otherwise, because I think even though he was such a famous actor and comedian, he still led a private life that none of us knew about, none of his fans knew about. So it was really good. It's really sad. It's kind of hard to read, especially if you're a big Robin Williams fan, but I am glad I read it. The sun isn't supposed to set for an hour, but it keeps going in and out between the clouds, so hopefully the lighting is still okay. The next book I read I don't have with me, but it is called The Marriage Plot, and it's by Eugenides, and it was really good. I actually read it for the book club that I have with my sister and brother-in-law. I had never read anything by Eugenides before, but I really enjoyed it, and it makes me want to read Middlesex or one of his other books. I think The Virgin Suicide is another one that he wrote. It basically followed the intertwining lives of 3 fresh out of university individuals. You had Madeline, or was her name Madeline? Now I'm all confused. But I think her name was Madeline, and then you had Leo. Oh my gosh, I don't remember any of their names. Leonard. It was Madeline, Leonard, and Mitchell. So it follows their 3 lives. I don't know if I would classify it as coming of age, but it's definitely a good book to read if you're in your mid-20s or if you are just graduating from university. Kind of reflected a lot of the feelings that I felt when I was graduating from university. I still feel like, and I will say that probably until I hit my next pivotal moment, but the years between where I am today and when I graduated from university, like those were the hardest years of my life. Like I really hated that period. I just was so stressed all the time. I didn't know what I was doing. I had this degree and I wasn't using it. I was so confused. I didn't know what I wanted. I was going through a lot, and that book kind of embodies those emotions a bit and the struggles that you go through mentally. It does get into quite a few deeper topics. It dives a lot into mental health, but I think it's told in almost a sort of lighter way or more comedic way. The author kind of writes it in a way that's easy to relate to. It's a little bit more lighthearted at times, and even though it's such dark topics or heavy topics, it doesn't feel like a really like depressing or dark book. So I did really enjoy it. I would recommend it, especially like I said, if you are kind of struggling with where you are in your life right now. And then another book that I read that I also don't have with me anymore is Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. It's kind of another coming of age novel. It's one of like, well, most of Dickens's novels, when they're about a boy that becomes a man, they're always kind of like coming of age novels. I actually did enjoy Great Expectations, and I know I say that I don't like Charles Dickens, but then every time I read a Charles Dickens, I kind of like it, which is kind of different for me because I've spent pretty much my whole life saying I don't like Charles Dickens, but then every time I read one of his books, I'm like, well, it wasn't that bad. I actually did enjoy it. It's not my favorite. David Copperfield is still my favorite, and then Tale of Two Cities is second, and then I would say Great Expectations is third. It follows the life of Pip from a boy all the way up to adulthood. Pretty complicated. Most of Charles Dickens's plots are very complicated. There's a lot of intertwining lives and complex relationships. Pip is a poor, abused, neglected child who then comes into a fortune. It gets a bit complicated when he gets involved with Estella. Estella was brought up in a way that makes her hate men and want to ruin the lives of men. So of course Pip's in love with her. I think I would read it again, but maybe not for like a few years. Then this past month I finished 2 books as well. I read The Midnight Library, which I actually read with my virtual book club. Instagram is the best way to message me if you're interested in the book club, but we did read The Midnight Library by Matt Haig at our first book club meeting. Really glad I read it. It's the type of book that I love. It reminded me a lot of The Bell Jar. It's about a young woman named Nora who attempts to commit suicide, but in between like life and death, she ends up in this library. Every book on the shelf is a version of her life, as it would have turned out if she had made a different choice. So the whole point is that she's taking these books off the shelf, she's opening them, she jumps into a different version, a different alternate universe, and she stays in that life until she feels a regret or disappointment, and then she ends up back into the Midnight Library. So the point is she's supposed to find her perfect life where she has no disappointments and where she is super happy. The concept is really cool, but it does make it hard to get attached to a lot of the characters because, first of all, none of them really feel real because they're real, but it's like alternate universes. So you know that her original life where she commits suicide, like to me, that's like her real life. And these other versions where she meets these other people, it just doesn't feel real to me. At least that's how I felt when I was reading it. So you don't really get to know the other characters as well. It is a really good book because it's quite relatable. Like a lot of the things that Nora thinks and the way she expresses her feelings and emotions, I found them pretty relatable, but then I also found The Bell Jar very relatable too. If you guys have recommendations for other books similar to The Midnight Library, let me know because I just really like them. I find them so relatable to read. And the last book that I read this quarter was The Beautiful and Damned by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Another amazing book. I really like this. I think this is going to become one of my favorite books. Maybe not like my top 5, but definitely like top 10. I think I like this one more than The Great Gatsby. I think it's actually better. I wish I knew what Fitzgerald thought because I really want to know if he really thinks The Great Gatsby is his best work or if he thinks it's this one, because I would say it's this one. It follows the lives of 2 individuals, Gloria and Anthony, who fall in love and get married, and it's during the Jazz Age in New York. So it kind of starts, I think, 1913, and then it takes you through the early years of the war, and then it finishes off World War I, and you kind of end up in the 20s, and it follows Gloria and Anthony's fall from society. Like they were both pretty not like well-to-do. Well, I guess they were kind of well-to-do, but they were really enjoying their lives. They were in like the elite class. They had a lot of drunken party nights. Like they lived crazy. It's kind of alluring and appealing in a way, like their lifestyle, but at the same time, it must have just been so tiring. Like they literally went to parties every single night and were drunk on like a Tuesday night It didn't work, so that was probably why they were able to do that. Neither of them are very likable. Like, I didn't like Anthony pretty much at all. Like, he was kind of good sometimes, but I didn't really like him. And Gloria, really, I didn't like her at all. She kind of redeems herself a little bit. It kind of shifts. Like, at the beginning, you kind of like Anthony more, and then by the end, you kind of like Gloria more. But they're both not very likable. My light is going, so I'm gonna wrap up this video. But those are all the books that I read in January, February, and March. But let me know if you like this series. I will have a reading list video out soon, like an updated spring reading list maybe. Thank you guys as always for watching. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Twitter. Please subscribe if you'd like to see more videos, and I will see you in my next one.